Good afternoon, guys. My apologies for the delay. We're having some technical difficulties. So quickly get started. My name is Ajay. I'm a technical consultant with Valiantys. Valiantys is a Atlassian partner. We specialize in Agile transformation and also ITSM service delivery. Today I'm going to talk about one of the projects that we worked on over the course of the last 6 months to a year. So the project we worked on was with a healthcare IT provider. So the talk today involves a case study around the implementation of Agile and how they scaled up the implementation to a department of 200 plus developers. So before I start, can I get a show of hands? Have you guys heard of Atlassian before? Yeah. So you all know Atlassian? So the talk today will mostly focus on how to implement SAFe with the Atlassian toolset. The other part is the SAFe itself. So SAFe actually stands for Scaled Agile Framework in the enterprise. Have you guys heard of SAFe before? Cool. So some of the stuff that you hear today will be familiar to you already, but I'll quickly go into introduction, how SAFe is and why it's different, and its plus and minuses over Agile frameworks. And finally, I'll touch on the key learnings and takeaways from the project. Quickly, the company that we worked with was called System C. Before we started with them, they had a long product cycle, the stuff that you hear about in the old waterfall books, 12 to 18-month product development cycle. You build out features, and by the time it ships, it's not what the customer wants. The other bit was the long-term value, and finally, the code quality and technical depth. So because of the way they've structured their code base and other stuff, and they've built up a lot of technical depth over the last couple of years, which we helped them out with as well. And the last bit is also the important bit, which is kind of aligning solutions between different teams. Because of the way the Agile teams work, the independent teams who work in 6 to 9 person teams. So there wasn't a lot of coordination between releases when things went out the door. So this is a quote from one of the advocates of SAFe and Atlassian toolsets at System C level. The use of Jira, Agile, and SAFe has improved our ability to track progress, features across multiple projects, and suddenly staff have visibility over features and see what they're waiting for. I'll quickly go into how we implemented this program at System C. What is SAFe? Essentially, SAFe is an online, freely available knowledge of established frameworks such as Lean, Agile. You guys know this stuff already. If you guys do Agile, you must have heard them already. I won't go into how to do Scrums, how to do Kanban, but I'll touch on the more high-level stuff that sits about Scrum and Agile. So why SAFe? I think the main point is SAFe standardizes planning and execution in the organization. So the entire organization comes together, plans, and delivers something. It's a proven public framework. It's been well documented. It's used by BMC and several other large organizations. And finally, I wouldn't say it's a new paradigm altogether. As I said earlier, think of it as a extension of the existing Agile methodologies. Just a quick overview. When we start off with companies that haven't done Agile before, so they work in small iterative fashion, but they don't know how to transform away from doing waterfall to completely Agile. You can imagine it being totally chaotic. And I think SAFe kind of gives you a more structured way of doing Agile, so it's useful in that sense. There's 3 levels of management in SAFe: program, portfolio, and the team level. The structure is not so much for control, but it's to lay out the strategy at the high level and decentralize the decision making at the low levels. The important aspect of SAFe is the release train. So this is kind of what I touched on earlier, coordinating releases between the Agile teams. The whole idea is the organization as a whole comes together and commits to a release train, and they have a release planning meeting for a whole day, and then you work on that release train. A release train is often made up of several scrums as well, so several scrum iterations. So where SAFe fits in, I think if you look at this kind of image here, so you have the traditional plan-driven approach where you have your waterfall model. You say, I want to build X, Y, Z, and you have 12 months to build it. And on the middle, you have the other frameworks such as DAD, which is quite popular. And then on the SAFe side, you have the lean start approach for product management, which sits above the SAFe. So you decide, I want to implement XYZ functionality, and then that kind of gets propagated down with the SAFe framework. So I think it's important to realize that SAFe doesn't replace the Agile, but it's extending the Agile. So nothing beats an Agile team. We all agree that cross-functional Agile teams, small teams work independently, deliver stuff faster and have better value realization compared to waterfall approach. But what does beat the Agile team is a team of Agile teams. So this is the Agile release train that I spoke about earlier. So I'll touch on the levels of abstraction again. So if you think about your Agile development, you have your PM who is going to plan stuff out, release at a time, but you don't have anything sitting above that in the Agile frameworks, but SAFe provides that. So if you think about work unit, which is your Jira task or Jira issues, and above that you have the 2-week sprints, which are your user stories, and then above that you have the release trains, which are the epics, and then above that you have the product and portfolio management piece, which is your roadmap for the next 6 to 18 months. This is actually not my research, but this is research provided from the SAFe Foundation. So they've done studies and they have proven that with SAFe methodology, on the whole, you get 50% reduction, 30 to 75 faster time to market, and finally 20 to 50% increase in productivity. So where does Atlassian fit in? I think you guys know Jira already, but Atlassian also has a whole suite of products on Confluence, Stash, Fisheye Crucible, and Bamboo. So today I'll focus on how we implemented SAFe using Confluence and Jira. So the levels themselves, actually I'm missing a slide. I do apologize. I don't know, we were messing around with the slides earlier. But the scale of the SAFe methodology describes a picture, which is called a SAFe big picture. And it is broken down into different facets on different levels, organization roles, and release trains. I'll go into that in a minute. So I touched on this earlier, but SAFe you have different levels, portfolio, program, and the team level. So essentially sitting on top you have the product managers building up epics and stories, and then you have the features on the program level, and then you have teams working on sprints and hammering out Jira tasks. So the people, the roles in SAFe are a bit more specialized for each level. It's similar to your product manager, product owner, business owner, but there are additional people involved in the SAFe process as well. You have the management team who makes the decisions on what portfolio piece to implement. You have the product management team who goes and implements the programs, and then you have the product owners who break down the user stories into epics. Another important aspect is the system team, which is kind of your DevOps team. So the system team supports the Agile team. The release train engineers, they facilitate the activities on the release train. So if you think about this picture here, this is the release train going down the program and the team level. So these guys facilitate the release train, make sure everything is moving along fine. The backlogs, similar to how you have Jira backlogs, once you do Agile, you have backlogs at every level of the safe piece as well. So at the top level, we have the portfolio backlog, and then below that we have the program backlog, and then below that we have the two-week iteration task backlog, user stories, and etc. Additionally, it's not strictly hierarchical. You can have tasks. You can have tasks which are not linked to epics. You can have epics which necessarily not linked to programs, and vice versa. The important aspect around SAFe is code quality. This is actually built into the architecture at the top portfolio level as well. So that's the stuff you see at the top there. So SAFe focuses on code quality practices. It focuses on building agile architecture. So at the top level, you have the business need and also the architecture need. So to reduce technical debt going forward and stuff like that. And then you have the continuous integration piece, and finally we have the test-driven development. So this is what the Scale Agile framework looks like as a whole. So it's not a monolithic piece, but it can be broken down into logical chunks and it actually makes sense. The economic prioritization, this is kind of like the ranking of the backlogs, pretty much. So if you think about how you're going to implement features at a high portfolio level, you look at the economic prioritization, which basically looks at a WSJF function. You might have heard this before. The WSJF is essentially your weighted shortest job first, which is essentially prioritizing stuff that has very high return and shortest time to implement. So there's a complicated formula that actually goes beyond this to come up with the score. So essentially everything at portfolio and program level has a WSJF score and is prioritized accordingly. That's just a crash course on SAFe. Actually, it goes beyond that. I'm sure a lot of organizations will offer you training for a few days around SAFe. This is not everything, but I think for people that haven't heard of SAFe before, it was important for me to give you a quick overview. So now I'll talk about Atlassian and how we implemented the SAFe scale architecture with the Atlassian suite. So SAFe in practice, we have the three levels that I spoke about earlier. At the top level, you have the architecture and the business need. So the business need is the functionality that is going to derive value, and that's like implementing a mobile app to generate X amount of revenue. So this is very high level stuff that you're looking at for 12 months down the road. There's also the architecture need, which I stressed on earlier. This is essentially the architectural runway that you need to build to implement the functionality. On the program level, you have the epics, and then below that, you have the team level stories. So the way we implemented this in Confluence and Jira is essentially to use 3 different projects in Jira. So the portfolio management, we use a dedicated project. And then for program management, we also use a dedicated project, and we use Kanban boards to monitor progress and move things across and prioritize issues using the SJF score. And finally, we use the normal Jira Scrum boards and Agile board at a team level to track teamwork. The Confluence stuff comes in for the documentation of the business value to understand, what needs to be built, how much value is going to be derived, the business use case, building that up to management, and selling that to the organization. So that piece is also important because Jira is more of a project management tool, but it doesn't have the ability to hold large documentation. So save at portfolio level, I think I stressed on this earlier, highest level of planning, 2 issue types. We had a business and architecture issue type, Kanban to visualize the status. The sole purpose of the board is to understand if stuff is accepted or rejected from the portfolio. So this is the workflow for the portfolio piece. So we have a funnel of all the issues that we want to build in a project. We create a business case for it in Confluence, document it, and understand the impact of building XYZ functionality, review it, and then analyze it, and then finally put it in the backlog portfolio to be put into the program management piece. So essentially, this is what Jira workflow looks like at the portfolio level. Essentially, the diagram we had before. You go from funnel to analysis, to in progress, to approved or rejected. And once it's done, you archive it. This is the Jira portfolio Kanban board where we can track progress of all the portfolio stuff that we need to work on. Remember, the portfolio is looking long-term initiatives, looking at stuff that's coming down 12 to 18 months out. So we also created templates for generating and storing business value. So essentially, the product manager or the exec team who's sponsoring the exec team member who's sponsoring the initiative needs to document the value that's going to be generated. So this is a document value statement, which is recording the initiative and the work that is needed for the initiative, and also recording the WSJF score. So I'll touch a bit on the WSJF score. This is essentially, as I said earlier, the value that's derived and how quickly you can derive it. So the more quickly you can derive XYZ value, the better the prioritization for that piece will be. So this is the formula which determines that. So it's a very scientific approach. Save at program level. So this is essentially just an abstraction down from the portfolio level to track the progress of the individual program level items. Once they've been put into the portfolio backlog, then they get broken down into programs, which are basically your epics in Jira. So this is a simple workflow. Essentially, you have a backlog, and then once you've prioritized it, you're ready to do stuff with it, and then it's in progress and done. It's a very simple workflow. There's nothing ground-shattering about that. So one of the other things that we really put into place with the Kanban board was analyzing the throughput via the control chart. So this kind of gives you an idea of what is being implemented, how long it's taking, and gives you a good idea of how quickly things are moving through the Kanban board. I'm sure you guys are familiar with this if you guys use Jira already. Save at team level in Jira. This is your normal developer workflow. You work in small teams. You have dedicated product managers, document writers, QA, and etc. that make make up the team, and then you work in 2 week iterations. So essentially what would happen is you have the portfolio briefs broken down into program and so on project, and the program epics get broken down into user stories via the product owners. So and finally, reports to keep a foot of the sprint programs and release statuses. Jira has a lot of innately built capability for reporting on the progress of your Agile teams. This one is the most common one, very commonly used for Agile teams with sprint burn down. Essentially gives you a run of how quickly you're completing user stories. The velocity chart essentially measures how your velocity has improved or deteriorated over time, and predictive velocity as well, so it will tell you, for your Agile team, what your predicted velocity is for the next couple of sprints. I think this was the most important one for System C, the release burn down. So this kind of fits into with the release train piece as well of safe. So you have an idea of, there's a release train coming down, say 10 months from now, so 10 iterations from now, and then XYZ releases need to go on the release train to have immediate feedback as to where the status of the releases. The other important aspect with Jira for safe is the immediate traceability and openness. Essentially, from the issue, you can look at what epics being implemented, and then what portfolio item is linked to. So you know what value is being realized, and then you can click through to the components page and understand essentially, what the documentation, the reasoning for this was. So it's all there for you to access. And it sounds very trivial, but when you don't have the infrastructure into place, you have zero visibility. The other bit is traceability and openness via third-party plugin, a link generator plugin. So for any epic in the system, you can have links generated, and then it tells you, what the status is, what the blockers are, and you have immediate feedback, and you can identify bottlenecks very quickly. There's lots more to this that we don't have the time to go into, that we did with System C to improve the Jira and safe implementation. So live dashboards, release dashboards for the release train engineers, QA dashboards and automation, time tracking, cost value measurement using portfolio and a couple other plugins. We also built easy BI dashboards for them to get all the reporting out of Jira. The other bit that I'm not going to touch on in a lot of detail, but something that implemented with the SAFE framework was the ITIL service management using the Xander ITSM, which is our own implementation of Jira Service Desk. And finally, there's the safe code quality piece with Stash using pull requests and Bamboo using continuous integration. The deployment strategy. So I'll quickly touch on how we deploy the project and our learnings from the deployment itself. The main thing is to test and improve. So we start off with UATing the build with select teams of so select Agile teams, and then running through the entire release training process and fine-tuned findings for a system-wide rollout. Also, this involved obviously creating the system documents in Confluence and moving the Jira backlog iterations in advance. Key to successful rollout, as I said, the full rollout you need to really prepare for it. You can't just implement something. Change management piece becomes very important. Training is paramount. More on this later, but I can't stress enough, if people don't understand the roles, they won't get the job done. The SAFE is a very descriptive framework, so they have specific roles for everyone in the team, and they have to fulfill those roles. So people need to know how they contribute to the overall picture. So this bit is identify and groom for the team champions. I think you need to identify those key members who are going to make the implementation successful in teams earlier on, and give them the resources to reduce resistance, shall I say. I think this fits into the training piece. I think it's very important to establish a narrative for the program and safe implementation. So it's around Agile coaches, release engineers, and product owners. They need to know, what their role is and how they fit into the piece. Establish purpose. I think it's very important to communicate with everybody why you're doing the safe implementation. How safe a team and program level works, so people have an understanding of the product direction, why decisions are being made at XYZ level. And more importantly, create a shared vision of the end goal, what the success will look like, how we will get there, and just be open and transparent with everyone. The other bit is around communication. I think communication in this project was very important. Standardizing, execution, planning in the large organization to work together. I think one of the problems with SAFE is it requires organization-wide commitment for it to work. And because it's such a descriptive process, everyone needs to know how to do SAFE, know their role in the organization, so the communication piece becomes very important. As I said earlier, participation is not enough. You need unity and uniformity, and follow that everyone adheres to that to get the maximum benefit. And finally, other learnings. The initial release train planning is a lot of effort. It takes an entire day's planning to plan out the release train for 10 iterations in advance, so it takes organization-wide commitment. So be ready for that. Champions, they need to be not only technical but also business owners. Like the product owners are very good for this. Generally, the tech leads become the product owners automatically because they have the business understanding. Well, most of them do, and also they have the technical understanding of how to implement XYZ functionality.